Now come to discuss the 4 plus 1 process view model, which is an important topic. So the lecture contents for today are CRC cards and then 4 plus 1 view model. When we talk about the object oriented design, so first we talk about the high level design and then the low level design. In our previous lectures, it is discussed in quite detail that object oriented analysis or class diagrams, objects diagram helps not only in defining the high level software architecture but also helps in the low level designing. So first come to the high level conceptual design. All the classes needed for building the system are identified and each class is assigned a certain responsibility. I always talk about this, that components are nothing but components are the classes, or classes are mapped to the components. So normally one component consists of single class, but it is not necessary. Component can comprise more than one classes. So alternately, this means every component has a particular responsibility. Means a component is responsible for doing something, for some task. This means all the classes needed for building the system are identified first, and each class is assigned a certain responsibility. Class diagram or CRC. Why it is called CRC? It will be discussed shortly. So class diagram or CRC card is constructed in order to clarify the relationship among the classes. Then interaction diagram constructed on the basis of use case diagram, and it is already discussed in the detail that first the classes are identified. So based on the classes we identify the high level architecture, we define the high level architecture, and then that become the base for the low level designing, and then from the classes we draw the sequence or communication diagram which shows how the classes interact, and then both become the base for the software designing. Because the static overview, the static structure is not enough. We also have to draw the sequence diagram, communication diagram, means the interaction diagram, because the components integration and communication is also important for architecture diagram. So this was all about the high level design and low level design, which is also called a concrete design or detailed design, where attributes and operation are assigned to each class based on the interaction diagram. Remember that when we talk about the communication, the sequences diagram, the interaction, so all this happen because of certain functions or operations. An operation is always performed on attributes. So on low level, these things are defined. State diagrams construct for the complex diagram are the part of the low level. Now, what is the CRC card? So first thing is the identification of classes, and CRC means class responsibility collaborator card. Class which is identified, and then responsibility is defined, and then collaborator is also defined. This become a CRC card. Now what is responsibility? Responsibility of class is a task that must be performed by the class, or the knowledge that is known by the class. Means there should be there must be certain tasks performed by the class. Means there should be some responsibility of the class. Class cannot be defined without responsibility. And collaborator is also a class that is involved in accomplishing or achieving the responsibility. That is actually the collaborator that helps the responsibility class. So that become the CRC. So CRC is derived from the classes concept. So if in this table you can see we write here the class name and then 2 column, one for the responsibility and then the collaborators for that class. 3 types of participants: domain users, obviously users operate the class, or design analyst, and facilitators who facilitate this design. Now CRC card for register use case. And remember one thing, and this is already discussed in detail, that classes are derived from the use cases. From one use cases many classes can be derived, but at least one class is derived. Register. A customer visits registration page and register himself. So how he register? He specify the desired username, password. If there is already a such username, password, the system reports error, otherwise it reports success. When the registration is completed, the username, password, full name and billing address are stored in the database. So now the class name here is a registration page or registration class. The responsibility is the username entry, the password entry, knowing the username. This show the username will be stored. The password, the registration controller, means the registration controller is responsible for controlling this class. Handle button, click on the event of submit button, means submit action. So the collaborator of this function is registration controller. Means registration controller is a program, actually the program or program class that is actually the collaborator for this responsibility. Without collaborator, responsibility is not achieved. Similarly, you can see other responsibilities. Handle the registration request. So it first create a user account with a desired username, password, and the collaborators are customer information database, registration success page, and registration failure. These are collaborators. Why? Because with the success page and the failure page, we know that either our registration is successful or not. And then the rest of responsibility. Remember that collaborators are not necessary for each responsibility. There can be a collaborator for certain responsibilities. This was the registration. One thing I forgot. Remember that for every responsibility there might be some collaborator, and for collaborator there are possibility that more collaborator exist. This means for collaborators, other collaborators also help, and for that collaborators, other collaborators can also help. So here the registration controller is the collaborator, and this is the registration controller class, which is a collaborator for the registration page. And the collaborator of the registration controller classes is defined for the handle registration request, which is customer information DB, registration success page and failure page. Similarly, for registration controller, it is possible that for customer information DB collaborator, there can be other collaborator possible, but here it is empty. This shows no need of further collaborator. If there are more collaborators exist, so you can put here. Now this is the CRC card for session control class. The responsibility is handle login request, and the collaborator is customer information database. Handle logout request, same collaborator. Add item into shopping cart. So inventory database is collaborator. Product information is the collaborator, because without product, order cannot be successful. Order to shopping cart cannot be successful. For delete, we need inventory and product. For clearing shopping cart, we need inventory and product. For checkout shopping cart, we need inventory, product info, finance department wrapper, and shipping department wrapper. So in this way we mention all the collaborator. Now the second phase of OO design is construct an interaction diagram. How the components and classes interact. So UML provide two popular forms of interaction diagram. One is a sequence diagram, another is a communication diagram. Sequence diagram shows the collection of classes, while communication basically shows the collection of specific objects. Through objects, we further clarify the classes that become more relevant for the large systems. Now, intent of 4+1 view. Why we use 4+1 view model, and what is 4+ view model? So it will be discussed here. It is a mechanism to separate different aspects of software engineering into different views. When we view the system, so we view from different perspectives, and different types of stakeholders are related to this system. The stakeholders can be developers, whose aspect is the system classes, who analyze the classes, who develop the classes, and the system administrator are responsible for deployment, hardware and network configuration, etc. and configuration, etc. Other points can be made for tester, manager, customer, clients, maintenance, engineers, etc. 4+1 view model used to address large and challenging architecture. The views are used to describe the system from viewpoint of different stakeholders, such as end users, developers, and project managers. In addition, selected use cases or scenarios are utilized to illustrate the architecture, serving as a +1 view. So why it is called +1? Because it combines the 4 different types of views into one system. So it combined the 4 different types of stakeholders, categories, 4 different categories of stakeholders or people into a one system. The view are used to describe the system from viewpoint of different stakeholders. So plus sign is used because it integrate comprise the different views into one opinion system. You can see these are the 4 different types of views from different type of stakeholders. The first is a logical view, which is from the perspective of the end users who operate the system. Development view, who is the view from the developers. Physical view, which is the view from the system engineers and system architect, while the process view, who is the view from the integrator who integrate the system. Now, based on the logical view, we develop, so the arrows from the arrow come from the logic view to development and process. This means the logical view, which are the logics of the business process, which are to be practically shaped as a software. So developers are responsible, and then some process is needed, because without process and without certain activities like activity diagram, which show all the process or action in from start to end. So without process view, logical views cannot be implemented, and then that process when implemented, when this process is implemented, can be viewed on a physical devices. So let's take a scenario, use case view. Use case is the view from the user interaction perspective. So viewers are all the users of other views and evaluators. Consider the system consistency, validity, logical view, which is the object-oriented decomposition, viewer, end users, analyst, designer. So in logical view, not only the end users are included, but analyst and designers are also included. Why? Because analyst analyze the logics and then designer shape their logics, and they consider the functional requirements, what the system should provide in terms of service to the users. This view shows the components, means the classes or objects of the system as well as their interaction relationship. UML diagram for this are drawn, for this logical view drawn are class diagram, state diagram, object diagram, sequence, communication, collaboration diagram. Process view is the process of decomposition, and the persons include are the developers and integrator, because without integration whole process cannot be viewed, and developers are responsible for implementing it. Normally consider the non-functional requirements and also the functional requirement. It focus on the dynamics aspect, that is execution, time behavior, shows the process workflow of the system and how these processes communicate with each other, concurrency and synchronization issues, how different activities synchronize each other, how concurrent activities occur in the system. So UML diagram for this are the activity. So this means activity diagram actually show the process view, and the class, object, sequence, communication diagram are used for the logical view. So logical view, process view, this is the activity diagram for order processing. This is a start point, this is the end point, and different activity like check credit. So there is a two possibility: decline. So decline, after decline notification is issued and then system come to the end, or if it is not declined, then concurrent to process executed, make shopping order and make shopping billing invoices. This is a fork, and fork shows that these process will be concurrent process. So again, during the make shipping order, so it will be decided what type of it is. So remember that there is a difference between this decision and for. In for, the two activities executed in parallel, while here only one process execute, either this and this. So and all these concurrent process ends and the data is saved. So activity diagram shows the process view. And development view, programmers are involved, managers are involved, describe the static organization of the system modules, like for example package used, execution environment, class library, subsystem, tools detail is mentioned here, map software components to actual physical directories and files. UML diagram for this development view drawn are the component and package diagram. So until now you must have learned that different, why we draw the different diagrams. So one thing that is clear already is that every diagram have a certain purpose, but that is not enough. Laterally, when we view the system from different perspective, so then all the diagram lies in any of the perspective in 4+1 view model. So component diagram and package diagram are from the development view. And then physical view, map the software to the hardware. System engineer, system installer, system administrator, configuration managers, etc. are included. They are they consider non-functional requirements regarding to underlying hardware like integratability, portability, etc. They consider the topology, the network infrastructure, and other availability, server issues, etc. Physical view describe the installation, configuration, and deployment of the software application. System execution environment is included. It shows the mapping of software onto the hardware. UML diagram used for this physical view are the deployment diagram. So deployment diagram in UML are basically from the perspective of physical view. Relationship among the views. So there is a relationship. So concurrency is not addressed in the logical view. To achieve the process view, we need to map the classes and their object onto task and process addressing the concurrency and synchronization. So logical view does not support concurrency. Logics are produced but not so. Which view consider the concurrency is the best example is the activity diagram, which is in the process view. The process and process groups are mapped onto the processing nodes of the physical computer network. To obtain the physical view for each dependency between the component, there must be corresponding link between the nodes. Obvious, this is obvious. The logical view is also the base for the development. Normally each class correspond to the model. So modeling a system is basically to decide which views are needed to best express the architecture of the system and to expose the technical risk to the project. For each of these views, decide the artifacts like UML diagram, best diagram possible, needed to create it to capture the essential details of that view. As a part of processing planning, decide which of the UML diagram required frequent reviews and which have to be documented. Modeling the system allow room for diagrams that are thrown away. Such transitory diagrams are useful for exploring the implications of designs taken and for experimenting with the changes. Why it is called 4+1, not as a 5? Because so the reason is that there are 4 views, not 5. And why +1 sign is used? Because they are integrated into one system. So one system include all the perspective, so that why it is called 4+1, not 5. The use case viewed has a special significance because the user interaction is shown by the use cases, so that is important to know. When all the other views are finished, it's effectively redundant. However, all other views would not be possible without it. So is it important? It makes modeling easier, yes. And we then categorize different types of UML diagrams into any of the view. So it helps in management of the modeling. Better organization with better separation of concerns, yes. Each and every concern is different from other view. The 4+1 approach provides a way for architects to be able to prioritize modeling concern, yes. And the 4+1 approach makes it possible for stakeholders to get the parts of model that are relevant to them. So this was all about the CRC cards and 4+1 process view. Thank you so much for watching.